Hey everyone, Kelly here, and I want to talk about some of my plans for 2026. And I didn't want to give myself like too many goals, so I just have like basically two lists of books that I want to read. This one is my 26 books to read in 2026. I had found in past years, so before 2025, I had found that when I made myself a list of random books from my shelves that I wanted to read, that I wasn't reading those lists. But last year, what I decided to do was only put books that I had bought the previous year on my 25 books to read in 2025. And that actually was really successful. Of the 25 books, I read 20 of them, which was really good, percentage. That's what, 80% of the books on that list. And you might think, oh, you didn't make it, but that is way better. Like in previous years, I probably got only like 50% at most of the books I would put on my year TBR. So I felt really good, and I still want to read those other 5 books, but I found that when I got closer to like October, like I was doing really good, like reading some of the books on the list every month. But when I got towards the end, October, November, December, I wanted to start looking forward to like the books that I was buying currently. And so I wasn't like reading some of those past ones. So that's good to know as well. So this year, I made my list all based on books that I bought last year. So these are books that I just, bought within the last, year, some of them just recently. And I want to try to stack them more towards the beginning of the year because I think that will keep the momentum going, because then I'm knowing now that when I get towards the end of the year, I'm going to be moving on to like even more newer books that I had bought. And, I got lucky last year that when I was making my 25 and 25, that's basically the amount of books I had bought the year before that I had left to read. So I read the majority of what I bought the previous year. Great. I bought too many books in 2026 or 2025, so I can't just like do a 26 books and count everything that I bought. So I just went through and picked a few from each genre. It is kind of a little heavier on fantasy because that's just my favorite genre, but I tried to do like a smattering of different genres. And I picked 26 that I bought last year that I'm really excited about. So to start off with, I have a couple romances. And so I have 4 Weddings and a Funeral by Ellie Palmer. And this is a local author, a Minnesotan author. And I don't know really anything about this. A friend of mine had bought this for me because it was a more local author. And I am looking forward to getting to it this year. I just didn't read a lot of romance in 2025. So hopefully I will actually read a few this year. And then the other one was one of my book of the month books is The Heartbreak Hotel by Ellen Clover. And this is about a girl who is broken up with, I can't remember if it was a fiance or just a boyfriend. And she ends up at this rental and she wants to turn into an Airbnb for people that are heartbroken. So that is the romance ones. And then I just have some books that are kind of general fiction type things. I have The Mighty Red by Louise Erdrich. I've always wanted to read a book by this author. Like I've had her on my radar for a while, and so I just picked this book up a couple months ago from my local bookshop. I want to give it a try. I don't really know exactly what this one is about, but I just hear that she writes kind of like, slice of life, really devastating kind of books. So hopefully I will be in the zone to read that. I got Remarkably Bright Creatures by Shelby Van Pelt, and I've wanted to read this since it came out. This is the one where, I think an octopus is one of the characters. Like, we get the perspective of the octopus, and I hear great things. It was on a lot of people's best of lists the last couple of years, and so I had picked it up last year because it was on best of list the year before, and still am interested to get to it. And then I have Cursed Daughters by Oyin Braithwaite. I just got this in November, and I had loved My Sister the Serial Killer from this author, so I was excited that she had a new book. And I think this is kind of like generational story drama, family drama, and so that one is on the list. And then we have ones that are kind of general fiction, but more like mystery or thriller type thing. I have Her One Regret by Donna Freitas, and I'm actually have started this one, and this is like basically all about motherhood. It is a little bit of a thriller mystery because a woman goes missing, like her baby is found in a parking lot, but the mother is not there. So we're trying to figure out what has happened to the mother. But in this, we are following a lot of different women, and I'm really enjoying it so far, like the different perspectives of women and motherhood and all that. And then I have a I think this is kind of a straight up mystery. This is The Mysterious Case of the Alperton Angels by Janice Hallett. I always hear great things about Janice Hallett and her mixed media format of writing mysteries. And so this is the one that I hear the most acclaim for. You know, there's a lot of them, like The Appeal, people really like, but this is the one that I think pulled me in the most when people talked about it. And then I have a couple of historical fiction books. Under the Same Stars by Libba Bray, and this is like different time, like different timelines. I think there's 3 different timelines, and I think one of them is kind of like World War II era, and one's in 80s, maybe when the Berlin Wall comes down, and then one's in more current times, I think during the pandemic. So that is pretty much one of my only straight up historical fiction, because this one, The Hounding by Zenobi Purvis, I think has a little speculative vibe. I don't think there's actually something speculative going on, but I think it is trying to lean that way. It's about a group of girls that everybody in the town thinks that they can turn into dogs. So I think it's kind of a witch hunt kind of book. So that one is on my list. Then I have some ones that are like lean more on the gothic side. And so some of these could also be like horror, but more like gothic side of horror. So I have Frankenstein by Mary Shelley. This is a classic that I've just been meaning to read for a long time. And for some reason, I feel like, maybe because the newer movie came out, I feel like it's more being talked about again lately. I think some classics just kind of get buzz pulled in, I think because they make a modern adaptation. So this is one I want to do. I didn't watch the new movie, but I would like to finally read the classic. I have another local Minnesotan author, and this is The Keepers of Medicine Valo by Wendy Webb. And she writes a lot where her books take place on the North Shore of Lake Superior. So, and this one is like gothic. I don't remember if it's speculative or just has kind of like spooky vibes. So I'm looking forward to that one. Actually, I have 2 books that I bought by Wendy Webb this year, and this is the one I decided to put on this list, but who knows, maybe I'll read both if I like that one. And then I have The Possession of Alba Diaz by Isabel Cañas, which is a horror novel. I don't usually like possession stories, so I was a little hesitant about getting this, but I really liked The Hacienda, and I've heard good things about this one. And so I'm hoping that I will be okay with the possession story in her hands, because it's like historical Mexico in like a mining village. So, and there's romance. Hopefully that'll all combine to being a great gothic time. Then I have some that are kind of more like dystopian or sci-fi. I don't know how you would exactly rate them, but this is I Who Have Never Known Men by Jacqueline Hartman, and I heard this is like a dystopian. This was written more like in the 80s, I believe, and is translated from French, but it has been talked about a lot lately, I think, with the dystopian vibes, and it's about a group of women that are trapped underground, and they haven't been up to the surface in a really long time, and we don't really know what's going on in the world. And then I have Immaculate Conception by Ling Ling Wong, and I think this one centers around AI and is like sci-fi, speculative type of story. Yeah, and that's all I really know. I mean, I've just heard really good things because this was like a popular book in 2025. And then I have some nonfiction. This first one is a combination of kind of speculative and nonfiction. We Will Rise Again. And this one is a combination of short stories, but then also essays about resistance and hope and all that. And so I think it's going to be kind of a combination of like, yeah, there'll be short stories, but there'll also be kind of discussions about how fiction can affect our like current climate, and how like basically how like writing and politics can combine together. And that, you know, I read the introduction so far of this, and I really enjoyed that. And it was really about like how fiction can mirror our real life and give us that hope to keep resisting and keep trying for a better future. And then just some regular nonfiction. I have Jane Austen's Bookshelf by Rebecca Romney. This was in the Goodreads Choice Award, and I saw some people reading it for their like Choice Award videos and enjoying it. And I like Jane Austen, and at first when it first came out, I wasn't sure that I would find this interesting, but I hear it's a little more a look at like different authors at the time, and I've heard really good things about it. So I think I want to make sure to read that one this year. And then I have a memoir, The 29th Day by Alex Messenger. And this is about a man who, when he was younger, he was attacked by a grizzly bear, and his kind of like survival story. And because fantasy is my favorite genre, I had more fantasy than some of the other genres. And I split them by like middle grade and adult. So I have a few middle grade ones. I have Tiger by SF Said. And I actually don't even know what this book was about because the like blurb on the back is so tiny, but look at how beautiful the cover is, and there are illustrations throughout. So I am like interested in finding out what it was about. It was kind of like one of those that like Barnes & Noble had it as kind of a recommendation, so I picked it up. I have Otter by Catherine Applegate, which is about a little otter, and they are my favorite animals, and there's illustrations. Oh, and this is a book in verse, so it'll go really quickly. So I have that one on my list, and then the last middle grade one I have is The Beatrice Prophecy by Kate DiCamillo. I am about halfway through this already this month, and this one is kind of historical, but at the same time fantasy. We're following this girl that shows up at a monastery, and she doesn't know anything about her life other than her name. And then we are also seeing these snippets from a king who seems to be chasing her and trying to get her, and we don't know, like based on a prophecy about her, and we don't really know why. So we're just following her and her goat friend. And then the adult fantasy, I have 6 of, right? Yeah, 6 of these. I have The River Has Roots by Amal El-Mohtar, and I am also started this one. I put a lot of these on my January TBR to, you know, like I said, to get it started off really strong with the books on this list, and then hopefully keep the momentum up for at least the first half of the year. And this one is kind of very fairy tale-like. I am listening to it at the same time as reading it, which I think is the way to go because there's like singing and sound effects in there. But there are illustrations in the book, so I wouldn't recommend just doing the audiobook. I mean, unless you're not really like a visual person. I love to look at things while I'm listening, so I've been enjoying kind of following along with it. It's very like flowery writing. I don't really fully know what it's about. But one thing I want to show you, because I feel like no one has ever showed the hardcover of this book, and I didn't realize there's a chicken on the cover of it. Like I always see this cover of it, and never that there's like a chicken in there. I don't know yet why the chicken has not showed up in the store yet. But yeah, that is one I'm reading right now. And then on my TBR, I have The Everlasting by Alex E. Haro. I have read a few stories by this author. I've read her novellas, The Splintered. If I can use proper English, I believe that is the only thing I've read by this author. That and like the second one, Amira Mended. So those 2 novellas I read, but I've not read a full novel by this author before, but I've been hearing just rave things from everybody that has read this in like kind of the second half of 2025. And so I had to pick it up. But it's like a lady knight and a man who goes back in time to make sure that her legacy continues. And yeah, I'm just really interested, but it's also really short. So I'm like wondering how they're gonna pack everything into that small amount of space. And then a favorite author, T. Kingfisher. I want to read Snake Eater, which was her most recent release. I think this came out in December. And this one, I'm not for sure what this is about, because at this point I just buy T. Kingfisher's books and I just read them. So I'm not sure, you know, she writes both horror and fantasy, and I'm not really sure what format this is because I also haven't heard anybody reviewing this yet. So I'm sure it'll be good because it's T. Kingfisher, but I don't really know anything about it. It's on my list though. And then I have The Inheritance of Orquídea Divina by Zoraida Cordova. This is one that has just been kind of around for a while. I mean, when did this come out? 2021. So it's been around for a few years, and I hear about it every once in a while, and it sounds interesting, but I don't actually fully know what it's about. I just, you know, after a while of hearing people talk about it, and usually positive things, I was like, time for me to pick it up. And it's got a beautiful cover, so giving that a try. And then I have Bring Me Your Midnight by Rachel Griffin. This is a standalone fantasy, and I've read other books by this author that was like more witch kind of books. I'm assuming that this one also has some witch vibes, some magic vibes, but at the point where I've read an author a couple times and liked their work, I don't always look into it completely. I'm just like, oh, I want to read whatever else she's writing. So I picked that one up. And then the last one I have is The Incandescent by Emily Tesh. And this is kind of like dark academia fantasy, but from like the teacher perspective, which I think is really interesting because sometimes I don't like dark academia because I don't really want to follow college students. But since this one is from the adult perspective, and I believe there's a queer romance, and I think there's also maybe a mystery. I don't know. I've heard good things about it, and I've liked some of Emily Tesh's other works, so I put that on my list. So those are the 26 ones that I really want to get to. My plan is to really focus on, if I could read like 4 of these a month. I mean, I would finish pretty soon if I did that, but I thought if I can finish this in the first half of the year, I think it would be better because, like I saw from last year, by the time I get to the fall, I'm just ready to move on to my next project. So if I can read 3 or 4 of these a month and really focus on these, then I will have them all done before fall hits, and then I will feel like I have accomplished this one. I try not to put too many really thick books on this one so that I can feel like I have gotten a lot of them done. I did have some ones like the Jane Austen book shelf. That one is a bit of a longer nonfiction, but I'm hoping that like Jane Austen July will like force me to read it if I don't read it before then. So yeah, that is the ones that I'm really like looking forward to reading this year. I've already put a bunch of them on my January TBR and have started some, as you can see. So hopefully I will read all of these. The other goal video that I will eventually post is I have some series books. Last year I made like a big books to read. That was a fail. I'm not gonna make a big books TBR again, but I would really like to continue some more series and finish some series this year because I was kind of doing that more in 2025 and it felt good to finish some series up. And so I wanted to make my other goal this year to focus on more series. And so that one will be posted at some point. So if you have read any of these and you want to give me encouragement to read them, that you really enjoyed them, let me know down below, and I will see you next time. Bye.